Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network. And joining me for Astros offseason chatter is Astros future host and longtime friend of the show, Jimmy Price. And always a pleasure, Jimmy. Does it feel like Astros pitchers and catchers are reporting next Thursday?
Yeah, I mean, actually, there was like a little lull in the offseason. There always is, but I'm ready. Something recently. I don't know if it has to do with if we get to it later, I'll talk about it. I've been researching an article, and it's reasons for optimism, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the season. So
yeah, it seems like Astros fans are looking for pessimism all offseason. So yeah, reasons for optimism sound pretty good right now. And
yep.
One of the things everybody's talking about, of course, Jose Altuve definitely playing some left field this year, according to Dana Brown, and that's with or without Bregman and Polanco. It doesn't look like the Bregman thing, as we're recording's gonna happen. I know some fans are wondering, why would you play your Hall of Fame second baseman in left? And I want to get your thoughts, Jimmy, but I'll begin by explaining what I know anyway. The numbers show he's cost 13 to 15 runs a year every year since 22, which is last among all second basemen over 3 seasons. In 24, he created 22 runs above average with the bat, but took away 13 with his glove. He's especially poor going left or right, according to the stats, and has one of the weaker second base arms. Does that sum it up pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds about right. I think, I don't know. I think you look at, obviously they were looking at Bregman potentially with him coming back, and I'm with you. I think it's almost done now. But Polanco was another one they were looking at trying to bring in, and he was an infielder. And I think if they looked at what was out there, it was easier to bring in an infield bat to add to your team than it was to bring in an outfielder. And yeah, maybe he. I don't think he's going to go out there and win a Gold Glove, but maybe he's not as much of a detriment to the defense in left field as he might be at second base. But like I said, I think if they looked at a guy like Polanco thinking that's a guy they can bring in and he can play second base, and you put Altuve out and left, it's better than what's left on the free agent market in terms of outfielders.
If Altuve is playing left field, who are the most likely second base options in-house? Is Zach DeCenzo a possibility? I've heard Dana mention him in left field, but he's played some second base in the minor leagues. And then Bryce Matthews, I don't know where you go with him if they're not going to deal maybe Jeremy Pena, third base. You basically have a couple of guys potentially in his way with Perez and now Cam Smith. What are the potential second base candidates if he's going to play the left field?
Yeah, I mean, obviously on the roster you got Dubon, but looking to the minor leagues, DeCenzo I think is maybe a little big for second base. Probably profiles better for that first, third, or left. But Bryce Matthews is an option. I think he's a good athlete. He can probably play wherever they decide to put him. Obviously drafted as shortstop, played some third base last year. There's been talks about him could move to the outfield given his athletic ability, but he might be able to slide over to the right side too. Shea Wickham is another guy. I know he had some struggles last year at that one game at third base. But he did play a lot of third base or second base, in the minor leagues this last year. So he's another guy. In terms of your top guy, it's going to be Matthews for sure. I just don't know if they think he's ready yet. Made it to AAA last year. Had some struggles late in the season. Had some swing and miss, but the speed was there. So yeah, he's your top guy at second if you're looking for in-house options. But if you're looking kind of maybe for that stopgap, then maybe it's a guy like Shea Wickham.
I guess I'm confused. I look at the numbers and I see the decline. But I watch Jose Altuve. He's still super fast. I don't know how he got slower going left and right. And it's just weird to me that, some of this stuff couldn't be corrected a little bit. I know Paris Chico was brought in as somebody that can help the infield defense. And I just wonder, there's no way to help Jose Altuve. He still looks like a great athlete to me. And he used to be a Gold Glover, just a few years ago.
Yeah, obviously they've seen him a lot more than we have, because part of me makes me think that they do certain work, and he's older, but he's not that old, so to be able to still play defense at a at least league average level seems to be a realistic possibility. But I don't know. I mean, it's crazy. If you would have told me 2, 3, whatever many years ago that Altuve would be playing left field in 2025, there's no way in heck I would have believed that, and it looks like it's going to be true. But I don't know. Maybe they've done some things with him this offseason. They realize that maybe he is a better fit out there. But then I don't know if it's also just a possibility to rotate guys around and to get Dubon in the lineup, which I know he did have some offensive struggles last year. But given the offensive struggles that they may see from left and right, if you don't have Altuve out there, maybe this is a way to try to get some better bats in the lineup.
Are you disappointed Dana Brown hasn't signed an outfielder at this point? Was there a missed opportunity anywhere from any of the guys that have signed?
Yeah, I think Randall Grichuk was a guy that I was hoping they would take a stab at. Had a really good year last year, which is probably maybe a little bit of an anomaly compared to what he did before. But I think it was the D-backs that got him. And I think it was like 1 year, $2 million with an opt-out I'm sorry, not an opt-out, but a mutual option after the year. I mean, a very reasonable deal that kind of felt like, Grichuk is probably a better option than some of the guys we have out there. So, yeah, I'm a little disappointed they didn't go that route. Like I told you before we came on, I had read something that maybe Ben Gamble was coming back, but he's not a guy that you want starting 160 games out in the corner outfield spot. So I thought they might get somebody that, I was looking this morning at the free agent list. And I mean, there's still some guys out there that they could go after. And we're talking about outfielder, but you look in like the starting rotation or in the bullpen, with moving Ryan Pressly, there's guys out there they could go after. It almost just seems like, they've kind of hit that tax threshold and they don't want to go over it. So they're kind of done spending money and going to maybe look at some of the in-house options. But yeah, I think it would have been nice to get a good corner outfield bat. And like, maybe you're not going to get an all-star level guy. We get that, but maybe somebody that can play 100, 120 games out there and give you some good offensive production.
Since we last spoke, Ryan Pressly was traded. The Astros received pitcher Juan Bello, who posted a 3.21 ERA with 91 strikeouts and 89 2/3 innings last year at Single-A Myrtle Beach. Does he have any potential, Jimmy? Is there any hope it wasn't just a salary dump on Ryan Pressly?
Yeah, I think they got a good prospect back. I mean, they're obviously the salary is part of it, but it wasn't strictly a salary dump where they're getting somebody that can't look forward to. I mean, he doesn't turn 21 till April. When these young guys are in the minor leagues, I kind of look for certain things. And one, do they strike guys out, and can they pitch in the strike zone and not walk a lot of guys? And he had a really good walk rate, a good strikeout rate at 20 years old in full season ball, which is already impressive. But good athlete, fastballs in that low 90s time, and I think there's the potential to get more out of him there. So I think he is a legit prospect. I'm super excited to see what he's going to do. I will have to warn everyone, if he's pitching in Asheville, it's a hitter's ballpark there. So don't freak out if he starts having some rough stats. You'll have to look at those peripherals, those walks and strikeouts, and maybe they get him out of there quick, get him to Double-A. But I do think he is a legit prospect, a legit starter. Started 22 games last year, like you mentioned. And yeah, I'm excited about. I was hoping we could get a little bit more for Pressly, but I'm excited about getting him back.
Yeah, in just a minute, we're also going to talk about how the National Evaluators rated the Astros system and a low-key player in the bullpen to look out for. But before we roll on, I just want to remind our listeners about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has a unique approach to fantasy sports with their simple pick'em style format. You can select players you believe will outperform expectations without the traditional daily fantasy drawbacks. If you feel like drafting, which many owners definitely feel like is the best part of fantasy, Underdog offers simple drafts where you select a squad and compete for some serious cash. You'll find all the major leagues and college sports on Underdog, plus a user-friendly interface, making it easy and fun to play. Jump in the fun by clicking the link and using the promo code HOU right in the YouTube and podcast description. So look for it there. If you do come aboard, you get a free pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Not a bad deal. So go check out Underdog and download their really cool app to your favorite mobile device. All right, Jimmy, I got to ask you about a guy I'm really rooting for as a potential new bullpen arm. Logan VanWey is from my mom's hometown, Joplin, Missouri, and he went to the college I started at, Missouri Southern, also in Joplin. What can you tell us about Logan VanWey? Is there potential there?
Yeah, I definitely think there is. Phenomenal arm, kind of sneaky fastball. I think he'll run it up to that 95, 96, but a delivery that's a little deceptive there. Great strikeout numbers last year in AAA. I think he can do multi-inning stretch. I think he ended up throwing 97 innings, something like that in the bullpen last year, struck out 120, and was one of the main reasons that Sugar Land made it to the national championship, AAA national championship, and won. Was he was part of that dominant bullpen. So yeah, I think Logan's definitely a guy that can get an opportunity in 2025. Injuries are going to happen. I like I mentioned earlier, I am optimistic about some of the relievers that we will be bringing back, but I think a guy like Logan is going to get a shot for sure. And undrafted free agent to be where he's at, it's already a hell of a story. But if he makes it up there and continues pitching like he did in AAA, then he'll stick around.
Boy, speaking of stories that just have gone on and on and on, and not in a good way. You followed Forrest Whitley. I mean, you followed his career longer than Jake Myers and Chas McCormick. Yeah, he was drafted before both of them. He's out of options. So do you see a scenario where he is not on the Astros opening day roster out of the pen?
Based on how he performed last year, I don't. I think he did exactly what you would hope to see from him, and as a reliever, he came in, he struck guys out, he threw with high velocity, and just really performed well. And he limited time at the major league level, but had some good numbers there as well. So, like you mentioned, out of options, I don't see with losing Presley, with some of the issues they've had in the bullpen, and the ups and downs of the guys that are injured and stuff. I don't see a way he's not on the roster. And to me, he needs to be given every opportunity, because if you look at just straight up potential, what he could do in the bullpen, and now you got the 8th and 9th locked up. We know that with Abreu and Hader, you're kind of looking for that 6th, 7th guy. And I think Whitley has the stuff to be able to slide into a spot like that.
So the National Evaluators, they came out with their list over the last few weeks. Baseball Prospectus came out with their top 101 prospects, Baseball America, MLB Pipeline, both their top 100. How does it look for the Astros? It feels like all they care about is Cam Smith, basically, or is there more?
Yeah, I think there's a little more. Like Baseball Prospectus, they've kind of consistently had a top 101 that was maybe a little bit different than everyone else. They had Cam Smith as the number 20 prospect in baseball. Like that's up there. We haven't had a prospect. I think Hunter Brown might have been ranked that high on Prospectus list a while back, but and then they have Bryce Matthews at number 63. Matthews wasn't on either. He wasn't on Baseball America list, wasn't on Pipeline. It was only Cam Smith, and Cam Smith was around that 60 mark. So Prospectus is obviously high on him. But yeah, I think Smith, Matthews, Jacob Melton is still right there. Kind of interesting to see him fall off, because he still showed some of that power speed combo that we saw from him that kind of got him drafted in the 2nd round and got him rated so high. He fell off, but some other guys like Walker Yannick struggled immediately in high A, but they challenged him. They challenged him after that draft. He went from Sam Houston State to playing in high A. He's another guy that's kind of up there. And then Luis Baez, another one, a big, strong outfielder that could potentially, made it to Double A at 20 years old. We'll see what he does next year, but he's a guy that has a lot of potential and could potentially get to that next level and be in a top 100.
Yeah, we keep talking about the outfield and what they're going to do. You mentioned Melton. It's interesting to me when you look at his numbers, his OPS is, pretty much well over 700 at nearly every level so far as he's moved his way up through the minor leagues. The thing is with him, great power, good speed, definitely gets on base. The problem you would say is that where he can't go to that next level is average. It just doesn't look like he's going to be a high average hitter at all. Is that how you would evaluate him at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's got a lot of moving parts in his swing that kind of take him a little while getting going. And we may see stretches, obviously, where he gets hot. But I think overall, you pretty much nailed it. He's going to have the power. He's going to have the speed. What we'll be looking from him is to hit some bombs, play right field, hit some homers, hits for some power, get on base. But, yeah, average. I mean, if he comes up and he can hit, 250 with 25 homers, 35 stolen bases, like you'll take that all day long. And I think that's the kind of guy that Melton can be.
Yeah, it just seems like he's somebody that's definitely in Dana Brown's purview, because they keep talking about we need a lefty in the outfield. And, with Chaz and Jake Myers, I mean, he could potentially platoon with either one of those guys. You say, oh, you want to keep a guy hitting regularly, but really, you could bounce him back and forth, platooning for both of those guys and giving him some time off. And so, I think that's a real interesting part of the equation with Jacob Melton. And,
yeah,
that's, it's, I think they might want to see like where he's at before they like panic and try to go out and maybe they deal for somebody at some point in the road, but it might just be like, we want to evaluate these guys. We can always come back to that. I don't think they feel like they're going to be out of it just because, one outfield spot struggling a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is a big spring for him. We saw Jeremy Pena back in 22 start on the opening day roster, which, up until a few years ago was it wasn't normal, right, for prospects to start on the opening day roster because of the implications for financial reasons down the line. So, but if the Astros are willing to do that, I think Melton's a guy that has an opportunity in spring training. If he can come out and have a big spring and show that he can be a hitter out in the outfield, and we talk about Altuve and left, but I don't see that being like the full-on game plan every single day Altuve is playing left. I think that's a every now and then kind of thing. Well, if Melton comes up and he can take left and McCormick is in right, or McCormick in center, Melton in right, however they decide. I think if Melton's hitting in spring training, he's going to have an opportunity early on to maybe make the opening day roster, but if not, definitely early in April. I mean, we saw Loperfido, he came out and crushed it in April, and he got an early call up, and obviously he didn't get as much playing time as we wanted and getting traded later. But the Astros aren't, they're not afraid to call guys up early. And I think Melton, if he performs, he's got an opportunity right in front of him.
Which outfield position do you think is ideal for Jacob Melton?
I kind of feel like right field. I think when you look at a guy like Jake Myers, who's, we talk about his arm, but he's phenomenal defensively. Like Melton's maybe not to that level. I think he's a really good athlete. I've seen him play center field in Sugar Land and make some really good plays. So could he play there? I think so. But looking at the current state of the Astros, I could see him in left or right. And I think it depends on, McCormick. If McCormick is the 22-23 version, I think we're good with him in right. If he's hitting 270 with 20 homers, you can take that. Maybe Melton plays left. If McCormick is really struggling, then maybe Melton gets an opportunity out there. But he could play all three, but I feel like corner is going to be where he ends up landing.
Where do you put his arm at? Because right now with Jake and Chaz, it's that's an issue right now in the outfield.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I think he's got a strong arm. So right field could be a better spot for him, given the throws that you got to make over in right field. But yeah, that's one of those things, Jake Myers, if he had an arm, the guy's a Gold Glover, just what he can do tracking the ball and the range he has out there. But yeah, Melton can kind of do it all that way. Super excited about him, and it really comes down, I think, to the bat. Great athlete. Is he going to hit the ball, and is he going to get the homers that he was projected to get when he was drafted?
A big part of the Astros dynasty over the years is their international signings. In January, they signed 20 players. What caught your eye about what they did on the international level?
Yeah, Kevin Alvarez, that's the top guy. Lefty, super young, very athletic. I think I think it's Jesse Romero, I believe. Oh crap, I don't want to say his name wrong, but the reporter that reports a lot of these international signings, and he's phenomenal. But he had a ranking, and they had like Alvarez is maybe the best pure hitter in the class, which is like there's a lot of things you can look at. You talk about being athletic and all this stuff, but when people talk about like your pure hitting ability, like that feels like something that's going to translate, So to get a guy like him, lefty hitter, great athlete, great pure hitter, can develop into more power. I think he signed him for $2 million. Like super, super excited about him. But yeah, they signed 20 guys. We'll see how soon some of them get over to stateside. And really, that's kind of where it comes down to. We've seen guys like go off in the Dominican Summer League, and then they get to the Florida Complex League, or they get to Single A Fayetteville, and they start to struggle. Like, I don't want to make any judgment really on him until we see him stateside, but seeing get a guy like Kevin Alvarez, who I think was maybe rated the number 7 or 8 prospect in the class, but maybe the best pure hitter, like that's a huge get for the Astros. So super excited about him.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember right, I was looking through the class, and it's mostly 16, 17. There's nobody that can help him anytime soon from these guys.
Unless you want to count Pedro Leon as part of that international class. But yeah, I mean, he'd be a bench outfielder probably at this point. Miguel Ulola is a guy I think that could probably have an opportunity. He looks like a guy that would fit in the bullpen. I mean, he's got like insane strikeouts, kind of walks a little too many, super young, but he's a high potential arm that I think we could see. He was in AAA, made it up to AAA. I think his AAA debut was actually the PCL championship game. But he's a guy that I think is probably the closest to being ready out of maybe some of the international players they've signed. Yeah,
of course, the guy's in the system, but I'm
sorry.
Looking at the list, I just didn't see anybody there that was, older than 17.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. They were definitely. It was a young crop. Yeah. I know there was a few others. Well, I mean, heck, there was the guy that the Dodgers signed. Yeah, that was one of the international prospects, right? But no, it was a young crop of guys they signed. So no immediate impacts there.
No Yuli Gurriel's in this one.
No.
What about? I did see that you just posted an interview with Ethan Pecko. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, I mean, 6th round pick out of Townsend last year, 2023 actually. So 24 was his first full season, and I think it was like 55 innings is what he had in college. Real small number. The Astros drafted him in the 6th round, and they obviously saw the potential. He pitched in the Northwoods leagues, I believe, in the some summer ball, and great numbers. When guys can perform in those leagues where the top prospects are playing, the Cape Cod, Northwoods, all that, that's a good sign. And he dominated there. So the Astros took him in the 6th round. He was already young. He was 20 years old when they drafted him. He wasn't your typical 21-year-old. He came in, started in single A, and I think he even said it himself, had a rough April, and then just went on an absolute tear. Was phenomenal the next month and a half, 2 months. got up to Asheville, struggled a little bit there, and then bam, got a quick promotion to Double-A, and the numbers rebounded. I think he had a 2.36 ERA in Double-A. Ended up being the Astros minor league pitcher of the year. His first year in the system, he was 21. So 22 now, starting the year probably in Double-A, but I think he's kind of one of those next, Spencer Arrigetti's a guy they just had, right, where he went from a mid-round pick, worked his way up, and then he saw what he could do with the Astros. So I think Pecko's that next guy. And I thought it was kind of interesting, the last pitchers of the year. So you had Ethan Pecko in 2024. 2023 was Spencer Arrigetti. 2022 was Hunter Brown. 21, I just texted this to Kenny a couple days ago.
Was that Fromber? Was Fromber 21? Or was that the year before?
21 might have been Jonathan Bermudez, which was kind of the one that was a little interesting. Obviously, there's no 20 season, but I think even you go back to 19, and it was like Christian Javier. 2018, maybe it was Josh James or something like that. But there's a good track record with some of these guys that have been named Astros minor league pitcher of the year, especially the last 2 years. It's Spencer Arrigetti and Hunter Brown. That's 40% of our starting rotation right there. So good sign for Pecko to make it up as far as he did. Good strikeout numbers. Super excited to see what he can do. And you look at the stats, and he put up really, really good numbers. Probably better than some guys that are on some top 100 lists, but he just didn't. He wasn't a high pick, so he's not going to get that publicity. Did it at a young age, but that's the kind of thing we've seen in the Astros system, right? The guys that aren't going to be ranked high like that, but he's getting guys out, pitching well, and if he continues this track, there could be an opportunity for him even as early as 2025.
Is there anybody that we haven't mentioned to this point that you think fans might want to keep an eye out in it for spring training, and like when they're watching spring training games, like, oh, let's see what this guy does?
The first names that pop out, I think the fifth starter is kind of still for question. I think it's probably Wesneski's to lose at this point. I think they've pretty much said that they want to use him as a starter. But from there, it's what other depth do you have? And the Astros had kind of a three-headed monster in Sugarland last year with A.J. Blueball, Colton Gordon, and Ryan Gusto, and they put up phenomenal numbers. And they pitched in some really tough parks. So I would keep an eye on those three guys and to see what they can do, because I think they're going to get an opportunity for sure. Blueball was our futures game. Pitched in one inning, I believe, during the All-Star week. But those guys are in AAA. If I had to look a little further down, I'll give you two that I'm really excited for. They're not ready to make an impact yet, but Chase Jaworski, 5th-round pick in 23 out of a high school in Colorado, had a pretty good year last year. Batting average was improving every month. Gets on base, steals a lot of bases. He's kind of an X-factor kind of guy. Slappy, shortstop, second base. Has some doubles power, but not a ton of it, but good speed. He ended up getting hurt and missed the last, I think, 2 months of the season, but he was constantly improving, and he was 19 years old in full season ball. So for him to get that chance now in Asheville, I'm excited about him. And then Kenny Gomez, that was another international free agent they got a while back that at 19 last year in Single A had a good start to the season, got a late season promote to Asheville and did really well there. And I think he's a lefty hitter, real smooth swing, opportunity to get into some more power. So those are two. They were teenagers last year. They'll be 20 this year, but two guys that I'm really excited to see what they can do now that they're taking that next step. And I'm assuming both will be starting off in Asheville.
They're not bringing the Cam Smith to Florida, are they?
You mean like in terms of spring training?
Just are they bringing him there?
I honestly, I'm not too sure. I think given the level of prospect, I could see him getting some. He'll be there, obviously, in terms of what he'll do in spring training, but I'm assuming he'll start out with Corpus Christi. He finished the season in Double-A last year in the Cubs organization. But, yeah, I think there's a chance we'll see him at some point in spring training, obviously on the backfields, and then when they have the split squad games. He's that level of prospect that I think he'll be up there.
Yeah, that could be fun to see what he can do. And, I want to ask you, our listeners, what do you think about Altuve moving to left field or any of the other Astros offseason storylines, anything that we discussed? Get in the YouTube comments. I definitely look at all the comments, so please be kind. And if you want to co-host with me, I'm looking for anyone who follows Rockets, Astros, Texans, and Cougars, all the sports, and feels like they can bring an original voice to help me out on the show. Reach out on social media or through my email, HoustonSportsTalkPodcast@gmail.com. And by the way, if you're a new fan of the show, please support us by subscribing on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. All right, Jimmy, what's the latest with Astros Future, the website and the podcast?
The podcast, hopefully, we'll get rolling here real soon. Been a slow off season. We talked with Tommy Sacco a couple weeks ago, but on the website, doing the top 3 prospects at all positions. So just did third base this week. Next week would be shortstop. But then, like you mentioned, talking about the guys that are on some of these top prospect lists, put out the article with Ethan Pecko, the interview I did with him. I put out a newsletter post as to why I think the Astros system is actually underrated. And then one that I'm really excited about is I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic about the pitching staff in 2025. And when you really break down the numbers, how good they were last year, and you're returning pretty much all those guys except for Justin Verlander, who didn't really perform well, and Ryan Presley. So I'm excited about the pitching staff in 2025. So I put I think I'm maybe about 1,200 words in, and I'm not done yet. But I'm hoping to post that next week. But you talk about it, there's a lot of pessimism this season, this offseason, not bringing back Bregman, not re-sign or trading Tucker. But I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about our pitching staff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see some of those guys, the guys you mentioned in spring training for sure. He's at Astros Future on X, of course. We always love having him. Thanks so much for doing this, Jimmy. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep, appreciate it.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.